Hello, everyone. My name is Dillon Carr. I'm a reporter with Ashland Source. I cover news for Ashland County in Ohio. I'm joined by Eli Yoder, former Amish member of the Swartzentruber community. It's a conservative subgroup of the Old Order Amish. I'm also joined by Joe Lyons with Ashland County Pictures. He's been covering this issue for his Facebook page and has done some correspondent work for Ashland Source too. Guys, I really appreciate you taking some time to talk about what we're going to talk about. But before we get into it, I wanted to just kind of back up and give everybody a reason why we're here. We're talking about the Amish today because they've been in the spotlight, in particular the Swartzentruber community lately. So we're hoping a conversation with Eli, someone who's lived his part of his life in this community, will help us understand their side of the story as it relates to the new Amish buggy laws. So here's some background. Ohio enacted a new law that requires all animal-drawn vehicles to have a yellow flashing light fastened to it. It became effective, I think it was the end of August 31st. And in October, local law enforcement here in Ashland County began pulling over Amish buggies that did not have these flashing lights attached to them. Since then, there's been around 30 Amish people, I think, from the Swartzentruber community in Ashland County who have been charged. And many of them have told the Ashland Municipal Court that they will not pay the fines attached to the misdemeanor charges, which could lead to some other issues down the road. We're not really clear on what those issues might be, but I guess we're going to find out. So Eli, can you kind of give us a crash course on what the Old Order Amish believe and how that differs from the Swartzentruber community?
Well, the conservative groups like the Swartzentruber, Old Order, they have an ordinance and they have voted on these rules in the ordinance. And they always stick with that, whatever's voted on, whatever's agreed on by the church. They believe that is the true church of God. So those are God's rules. So if they have voted on that and they agree on that, signed off on that, that won't be changed until the next meeting, which they have those twice a year. If that buggy law says that we can't have an orange color, if it's the triangle, if it's a blinker, then that's what they're going to stick with. It doesn't really matter to them if it's a written law that went into effect. They believe that you must obey their rules in the ordinance, which is God's church, God's rules, and not break those, but rather break the law if you have to, for the sake of their own rules that they have voted on. So it doesn't really matter if there's newer order Amish that have followed that law. Majority of Amish in Ohio have always had the slow-moving vehicle sign, the triangle, orange triangle. But these conservative groups where I grew up in, they have never given in to that. They believe that you should suffer for your beliefs. And as a little child growing up, I always heard about this because in the early 70s, my grandfather, along with about 30 others, were put in jail. And they did not give in because they also didn't pay their fine. So they ended up in jail. And the judge eventually just let them go because he realized that they were willing to literally die before they give into this, what they call a different belief. There's a book with that's called The Martyr's Mirror. These are the Anabaptists before Amish and Mennonite existed. A lot of these people mentioned in this book of The Martyr's Mirror, they were martyred for their beliefs. And they really look up to these forefathers and they say, we must stand firm in what we believe in. And no matter if other Amish deviate from that, every Amish community is different. They have their own rules, their own ordinance. But the very old order conservative, the Swartzentrubers, are all on the same page when it comes to this, to stand firm no matter what laws are written in place to protect their beliefs.
Yeah, maybe we should back up a little bit. How long were you part of the Swartzentruber community?
They called us the Old Order Amish, but it's literally identical to the Swartzentruber. But I was in there until I was 18 years old. I left at age 18, so I was there 18 years. I've been now out of that community for 24 years. This was in Hardin County, Kenton, Kenton.
Okay.
Can I ask a real quick question there? When you said you left when you was 18 years old, what was the straw that broke the camel's back that caused you to leave?
Well, that's something that the bicycle thing is another thing that a lot of Amish have. I rode one of those, and it was considered too worldly in my community. So because I rode a bicycle, has no motor, it's not electric or anything like that, but that was voted as a worldly item. So I was supposed to get baptized in 1998, and I was caught riding this bicycle 2 weeks before baptism, and they actually told me I do not qualify for baptism. And I remember trying to reason with them. I said, 20 minutes from our community was the Bell Center, Ohio, New Order Amish. And I tried to reason with them that, hey, they say they can get to heaven. They have a bicycle, but now you're telling me I can't get baptized. And they reminded me, we stand firm in our beliefs and our ordinance. If the rules are in there and voted on, that's what we must follow. So therefore, since you didn't follow those rules, you can't get baptized. And then shortly after that is when I left the Amish.
One side question too on that, if you don't mind, Dillon.
Yeah.
You said they vote on it twice a year. Is there a chance that when meet again that they'll vote to put on the flashing lights? Then would it be acceptable? Or do you think that they'll stay with the original vote of not having the yellow lights?
When it comes to the yellow and orange color, they won't deviate from that. They won't give in. There's little rules in the church that they give in, like a handheld flashlight that has batteries in it. They have okayed that years ago. But one thing that I can tell you, living in the community, they will not give in to the orange triangle or any bright yellow. For example, in my community, they're just like Ashland County. They said, no, we are not going to put the blinker on, but we also won't put the orange triangle. So they went ahead and put PVC pipe on with like a darker gray reflective tape around the PVC pipe. So the sheriff's department was behind the buggy and said, it's kind of flashy, it kind of sticks out, but can you at least put the orange reflective tape on top of the buggy where the blinker's supposed to be? And they still rejected that orange tape just because of the color. They believe the color is way too bright. It's a worldly color. And so therefore, I don't see them really ever giving into that color at all.
Do you have any insight as to, you said the color is too worldly. What qualifies worldly and not worldly?
Yeah, when people ask me questions about what is considered worldly, it literally comes down to each individual Amish church. They will vote on it. If they have the votes that agree that this item or that color or this color is worldly, then that is written into that ordinance letter. It's signed off, and it will remain that way until the following meeting. It's usually one in spring, about April, and the other one's usually October, early November. And it will remain that way until that next meeting where they revisit those rules and they go over them. Sometimes there's small adjustments here and there. In the conservative and Swartzentruber groups, most generally they're going to get more strict. They'll add more rules rather than eliminate rules or become more modern or lenient.
So I was doing a little bit of reading before this and just saw sort of a list of the different technologies that the Old Order Amish use. Can you tell us what kind of technology the Swartzentruber community does use?
In my group, we didn't have any technology. We wasn't allowed to have any technology at all. We couldn't even have the flip phones, which some of the New Order Amish now have. When it came to construction work, we wasn't even allowed to use power tools or battery, where it's not even no cord or electricity. We couldn't have even battery tools for business use. I'd say probably 90% of Amish in America use those for business use only, and some of them use air tools. But these conservative groups, again, what we're talking about, they will not even allow that. If you do construction, you're supposed to stay within horse and buggy distance, first of all. And then secondly, they always have it in the rules, in the ordinance, that you have to have your hand tools, just like you would use at home if you're doing construction at home on your own projects. You have to use those hand saws, hand drills, everything has to be the hand tools. That's how these conservative groups work. But as far as technology, I don't know of any technology that's even allowed, period, especially in my group, the Swartzentruber style.
What about washing machines? There's on Wikipedia. I was reading Wikipedia just for sort of some facts, and it said that some Swartzentruber community members use washing machines. Is that true? Or
Yes, there's very few that still scrib on a board. Majority of them will now allow that little like a 5 horsepower engine. It runs off of a gas, and they use this engine to pump the water out of the well, to pump out to the livestock tanks to water the animals. And they use that same motor on a washing machine. It's the old like Maytag washing machine with a lid and has the roller to rinse out. You got to shove it through to rinse out the water from the clothing. So it is operated with a belt around that little 5 horsepower motor, but they're not allowed to have anything more fancy than that.
Out of curiosity, what about generators? I was told a few of them up there have generators. Is that out of the ordinary, or is that a common thing?
The old order where I'm from, they did not allow any generators. Most of the Swartzentruber won't either. But I do know that there's a few, like Middlefield, Ohio. They gave in, they got generators, and they'll vote in their ordinance to allow that generator to maybe used only for certain things, and then they'll list what those things are. And then if you're caught using that for anything outside of that, you can get punished in the church. But I do know a lot of Amish that do have generators, but it's just mainly those conservative groups that if they vote on it not to have it, like my group in Kenton, they wouldn't allow any generators like that.
Do you still have any family members that are part of the community?
Yes, there's only 2 of us that left. The rest of them are all still in there, and it's kind of hard to visit them. My mother always makes me wear my Amish clothing to come out and visit, and I have to park my car next door. I can't drive my worldly car, she says, onto her property, even though her taxi drivers and everybody they do business with, they drive their cars in there, but I can't do that. So I follow the rules just for the sake of visiting my mother, because she only going to be here for so long. So I still follow her rules to come visit. But I obviously have, and that also changes from family to family. Some parents don't have those strict rules, but my mother was a daughter to a bishop. My grandfather, he was a bishop. So my mom always wanted to honor his wishes and how he handled things. So that's why she's always had more of the harsher rules and guidelines if I want to come back out and visit.
How does it make you feel to know that, your mom, sees you as being a worldly person?
Well, at first, for many years, I just refused to go visit because I was like, if you don't accept me the way I am, then the heck with it. I'm not going to bother even going out and visit. But and then later on, by 2017, when I got a hold of an English written Bible, because they have the German Bible and nobody really understands it. And so when I got a hold of a English written Bible, and I got saved by 2017, and when I received the love of Christ and started understanding their culture better and what the Bible actually says and how they got it so wrong, that is when I realized I must love my mother no matter what the differences are, and just go out there and show her what love is. And then I also share a lot of scripture with her just to try to get her eyes to be open. So that's my main goal, is just to try to help her to realize that, you're following tradition rather than what's actual biblical truth.
Now that kind of leads to a question I had. What Bible do they exactly use? Because I've looked at some of the letters that they've given to the judge, and I'm kind of wondering where they. Is there a Bible just for the Amish, or is it like a King James version, New World version? What version do they use?
The conservative groups that we're talking about enforce that you must use the 1522 Martin Luther German version. The German is a must, they say. And now some of the conservative groups have given in to where they have a German and then a translation of English right directly across from the page. You can flip over and go to it. Now, I've seen that small change happening in quite a few Swartzentrubers as of the last 2 years as I go into these communities. but there are still some of them that will strictly, kind of like the blinker and the orange triangle. Some of them will still hang on to that very firmly, and they believe it's a different belief to deviate away from the German Martin Luther Bible. But that is the original text that they were using. They believe that is more accurate to the Greek text, so to speak, because of it being handed down. They very much want to keep the traditions that were handed down from their forefathers. So if their forefathers did that, they believe you must honor your father and your mother. It's in the 10 Commandments. And they believe that the only way to honor your father and your mother is to do exactly what your forefathers handed down to you. So they inherited a system that they believe you must keep at all costs.
And that includes sitting in jail.
That is correct. They believe if their early forefathers, the Anabaptists, were able to die for some of the rules and beliefs that they have, then they believe that they must also do so. And I hope people understand in a lot of these counties, not just in Ohio, but around the United States and Canada, that the Amish, I want them to understand the Amish thinking and their mindset, because they look up to these forefathers and they have absolutely no problem at all to not pay the fine and then go to jail and even death. If it takes death, they are willing. I want people to understand that they are willing to go to death for what they believe in.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of answered my next question. It kind of, I want to get into the sort of philosophy behind their position. So, you know, this light, or disregarding this new Buggy Law, it's sort of a symbol, right? I mean, it's like they're willing to break it because there's a higher power involved. Is that?
Yes. Yeah, they're very zealous about it. They're very stern in their beliefs. They want to stand firm. They look at it as persecution. And I want people to understand that they don't know any better. They're very innocent in this. They believe this is the right thing to do. And when I visit my family, my mother and my oldest brother, they will sometimes, just to show you how serious they are, they will look at me and have tears rolling down. They're crying because they view me and others that left their culture as basically condemned. They don't feel like there's any hope that I could now please God and get into heaven. So I share that just to make my point that they believe that is the system that is correct. And they don't know any different than that. That's what they inherited. That's what they believe in. That's what they follow. And it's really going to be hard to ever undo that.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what you think the resolution is here. I mean, it's all going to come to a head, it seems, at some point. What do you see happening?
Well, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be up to each individual sheriff's department, the law enforcement in each county. In my county of Hardin County, they love to have a good relationship, and I love that when I have a good relationship, they also know that they are in that position to uphold the law, to enforce the law. But at the same time, they do want to have a good relationship with the Amish. So when they put the PVC pipe on, they were basically just showing the sheriff's department, hey, we are willing to do something rather than nothing. So they went out, and when I visited the bishop, he said, yeah, the sheriff's department came out and they followed us. They said, yeah, that looks really nice. You know, you can really see it spinning around the wheels with that reflective tape on the PVC pipe, and it helps. But he wasn't satisfied yet. He wanted more in trying to get them to put the orange reflective tape. So I say that because it's going to come down to each individual county and how they decide to deal with it. But I do want each county to know that since they are minded this way, they are more strict than the more New Order, more lenient Amish. And since they're wired this way, they are willing to go to jail. They're willing to not pay that fine, go to jail, and even death. So I want them to know that they're not going to give in. So they're expecting the sheriff's department to give in, to reason with them. And that's why they will bring letters. Most generally, they'll bring letters to read off to hopefully convince the judge. You know, a lot of them sometimes bring letters in from other Amish communities that have the same ordinance, that support the church. They fellowship together, and they'll bring other, like maybe bishops that wrote a letter to try and help convince the judge that they're standing before for why they should be let off the hook and just let them be and let them live. Now, there was the younger generation is trying to reason with a lot of these in my county and also Ashland County, because I actually had Wayne County, Benton County, Ashland County, and Hardin County all reach out to me of people that do have communication with either their driver's phone, or they might have one that they're obviously maybe sneaking around behind the church's back, where I was able to speak with them. And the one that stands out to me is Ashland County, where he said, you know, we're in our 20s, and we really wanted the elders to really see our point of, hey, let's just follow the law. And they said this to the bishop and the elders. Let's just follow the law so that we can please the outsiders, and they'll let us be, and we can live at peace and be Amish. And the bishop literally just replied back to him and said, I would rather preach at your funeral than to give into a different belief. So you're at your question about what will be the resolution. It's literally going to come down to each county and how they want to handle this. If they're going to stand firm and enforce the law and not give in and not hold the Amish above the law, then it could be a pretty nasty mess, because I know their mindset, and I know what they're going to stand for, just like they did in the 1970s when my grandfather and about 30 others were sitting in jail month after month. And finally the judge said, well, what are you going to do? I mean, they're just not giving in. So they just released them and just let them go back home.
I wanted to ask you about the, they're set against the orange. A while back, I forget how many years, I was trying to Google it real quick because I just remembered this case where they didn't want to have hunter's orange on for hunting. Do you remember that? It was big controversy for a long time. Can we talk about that? Because remind me why I'm Googling here. Whatever happened with that? Because I remember the first thing that kind of popped up was they agreed to wear red in place of the orange. Why is there such a big difference between red and orange? It's still a bright color. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. There was a couple of counties that did choose. It's kind of like what I was explaining a little bit ago about the PVC pipe with a reflective tape around it. They wanted to do something to hopefully please the county, the law enforcement, please the judge, because they started there's been multiple cases, actually, what you just mentioned there, where the game warden would give them citations and say, hey, this is going to be your fine, you got to appear in court, and they wouldn't pay the fine. But what they did offer in many counties, they actually did that in Hart County as well. They said, well, hey, we're going to use one of those red handkerchiefs and tie it around our hat, the Amish hat, and hopefully, and it was kind of a dark red, and having a black wool hat like they had, it was not even comparable to orange, but they were hoping that would take care of it. So there were many Amish cases it was in the mid 90s when I was still, a teenager. I remember so many Amish men going to court, and on Sundays they would talk about that. Like, hey, they wanted us to pay the fine, and the bishop said, don't give in. If they send you to jail, go to jail, but don't give in. And so they just kept on hunting with that red handkerchief around their hat. And if the game warden came back up to enforce the law, he would just give them another citation. Some of them had 3-4 citations. They just wouldn't give in, similar to the blinker.
I just got a notification just for everybody's information that I have 10 minutes left because I have to upgrade for more time. But just a few questions here that I have. So you mentioned some of the younger people in Ashland wanting to follow the law and going to the bishop there, and I'm pretty sure we've reported this, but I think there are some of the people that were given citations that have paid their fines. Why do you think some of them are okay with following the law and then others are not?
There are always going to be some of them that are going to disagree with how the elders and the bishop are doing things. Like my sister, she moved, her newly wed husband, they took off out of Kenton because the same thing happened with the sewer system. They had a new house. The new law had passed that you must have a septic system under that house if you have a new house, but the older houses were grandfathered in. The church also said, do not give in, we do outhouses only. So they condemned their house, and again, the church said, nope, you can't give in. Well, they're young. They were in their 20s, just gotten married. And they said, no, we're not going to go to jail. We're not going to do that. And so they moved out of the community. So Some of the ones that you just mentioned that are paying their fines, trust me, they're getting some heavy backlash on Sunday in the church. They're probably going to do a couple weeks in the ban for giving in and paying those fines. So it's going to be their decision. Do I stay here and keep paying my fines and get punished by the church, or do I just pack up and move out to another Amish community?
On that paying the fine real quick, Dillon, not take up any time, but I found out that only one had paid a fine. It was actually an English woman that had drove the family. She went in and paid it because she didn't want that particular one to go to jail. He was it's kind of special needs a little bit, and she didn't want him to go to jail, and so she paid it. So and all the other ones though that I've checked with, and that was up to a couple weeks ago, had not at that point paid their fine.
Okay. Yeah. Eli, what is something you wish, the quote unquote outsiders understood about the Amish community? I mean, you've mentioned that they're willing to die for this, but what are maybe some misconceptions that we have of the Amish community that you wish was clear?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, really, it's just, I mean, they're all different, obviously. It's just viewing one Amish community. You can't just put them all in the same boat because they literally are all different. That's one of the biggest confusions that I have noticed with people asking me questions on social media is, well, hey, they're doing this over here. They are all different. Even if it's 2 or 3 rules difference, every single community is different. In Ohio, you have over 800 different ordinances. Now that's a lot. There's a lot of different churches, New Order, Swartzentruber, Old Order, New Order. They're all mixed in together. And a lot of people don't know that a lot of these churches that we're talking about tonight, the Conservative and the Old Order, Swartzentruber, they don't even want to fellowship with the New Order that allow bicycles, that allow blinkers, that allow triangles. That's one thing I try to make awareness on. A lot of people don't know that stuff because they are so different in their rules and their ordinance. They don't really necessarily want to mess with those Amish, have any dealings with them. And a lot of them, the Old Order will even teach that you shouldn't do business, buy and sell with them because they may allow some of those modern day technologies and modern day things that we don't believe in the Old Order Conservative.
And just a quick follow up, I want to try to, I guess, give you an opportunity to talk about the Amish way of life in maybe a positive way. I'm not saying you're being super negative, but like, what is maybe something that you miss from the Amish way of life and the community?
The coming together and helping one another. Matter of fact, just about an hour ago, I put on my TikTok channel how they all came together in Middlefield, Ohio, lifted up 800 Amish men, lifted up a barn and moved it. They all come together. I miss that. I think the outside culture could learn a lot from the Amish when it comes to getting together, helping one another in time of need. Our barn burnt down when I was younger, and within 24 hours, the mess was all cleaned up. And within 3 and 4 days, the roof was on, the brand new barn was standing there ready to put cattle in. So they come together to help one another. And I love how they live off the land, the plain living, the lifestyle itself. I would love to live still today, growing a garden, living off the land, farming with horses. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people admire that. From the outside looking in, it's a very awesome, plain living that separates themselves from the rest of the people. And it's a wonderful thing. And I miss a lot of those values that the Amish have because it's a great way of living. And I just, again, how they come together to help one another in time of need. They're always there for one another. They got each other's back. And I admire that about them.